Hi, it's Michelle from Muffin Beauty Science, chemistry PhD, skincare nerd, and big fan of chemicals. And today I'm going to finally do a big overview of some of the Ordinary's products. This brand has a lot of products, and I wanted to try as many as I could, and I only have one face, so this has taken quite a while. I could only get through a few categories though, and this isn't even all the products I've tried. So I'm only going to cover a few of them, and if there's enough interest, then I'll talk about the other categories next time. So in this video, I'm going to be going through the direct acids, vitamins A, B, and C, the hydrators and oils, and the cleansers. I've picked out the best and worst products, in my opinion, from these categories, and I'll talk about them today. Remember that my skin is not your skin. You might really love a product that I really don't like, and that's fine. You shouldn't stop using it just because I said I didn't like it. This goes for any brand or product, but I think this applies even more when it comes to The Ordinary because of how they approach their product development, which I'll go into in a bit. If you like this sort of video, click the like and the subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Ever since they launched, The Ordinary have really transformed the skincare market. And I think they're one of the big reasons that everyone is so obsessed with the science behind skincare now. I think it's the magical combination of being really affordable, as well as having the ingredient names front and center on their products. So now we can suddenly afford to try all of these fancy sounding technical ingredients, and so we want to know what they do. The way that The Ordinary have managed to stay so budget friendly is by really simplifying the formulations of their products. This can work really well for some ingredients, but for other ingredients it really reduces their stability and effectiveness. And that's why I think The Ordinary's products can be so hit and miss. And the overall formulation, the process that The Ordinary has cut out to cut down on costs, can be really important. So this is stuff like making a formula, testing it on a range of skin types, tweaking it based on that feedback, and then testing it again, and doing that repeatedly to optimize the formula can be really important for making it work for a range of skin types. When Dr. Davin Lim and I talked to Decium's Chief Scientific Officer, I'll link that interview in the description, it doesn't sound like they went through any sort of this optimization process before they launched their products, which is something that every brand is meant to do at the very least for safety reasons. So this is why everything is so cheap, but it does also explain the massive range of experiences that you can see people having with particular products. So you'll see a whole bunch of 1-star reviews where a product gave them massive cystic acne, chemical burns, massive irritation, and then 5-star reviews as well where the product was completely life-changing. The packaging is also really low cost, so it's just a bunch of dropper bottles and flip-top lid tubes, which means that they can save a lot of money because they don't have to buy fancier packaging, plus they can reuse the packaging for a whole bunch of different products, so they get that bulk buy discount. So some products will go off a lot faster than they might in different packaging because some ingredients do really need that extra protection from something like an airless pump or a foil tube. So with a more expensive brand, not always, but it is a general trend for brands who really put a lot of thought into their formulations and their price reflects that, you can generally pick up any product and there's a pretty good chance that it'll work for your skin without any unnecessary irritation. But with The Ordinary, you have to put in a lot more effort to work out what will and won't work for you, and a lot of people who have more tolerant and forgiving skin will really enjoy that journey and experimentation. But if you just want to pick low-fuss products with minimal effort, and if you want to lower the risk of a bad reaction, then The Ordinary probably isn't for you. This approach also means that if an Ordinary product didn't work for you, then you shouldn't write off that ingredient. A better formula might still work for your skin. So just be careful with that. It is sort of a cheap way to try out lots of different active ingredients, but at the same time, you aren't really giving that ingredient a fair chance. One final thing I wanted to talk about is that the low price of The Ordinary's products means that it's really accessible, but it also means that it's really tempting to just buy a whole bunch of products and slap them all on your skin. It's like being a kid in a candy store. This is a really efficient shortcut to burning the crap out of your skin, and it can take ages, months to recover. The fact that so many products are single ingredient also tends to encourage people to do too much to their skin. When products are assessed for irritation before they're released, when ingredients have percentages that are recommended for use in products, this is assuming that you'll only be using 1 or 2 products, not that you'll be piling 5 products on top of each other. The Ordinary's regimen guide is actually pretty sensible. They don't really recommend more than 2 or 3 active ingredients in a routine, but I see a lot of people do it anyway. I think The Ordinary could make it clearer that you shouldn't use that many products at once because it's really obvious that people are ignoring their guidelines. But I guess people are going to do what they're going to do, and it's hard to expect a company to check what's in your cart and then put up an alert saying, "Are you sure you want to buy all of this?" So if you're getting into The Ordinary, try not to get too excited. Introduce one new product every 2 weeks or so to your skin so you don't overwhelm it and irritate it. And that way you can also really assess if that specific product is really necessary for you. So let's go on to the products. Simple formulas tend to work quite well for acid exfoliants, so these are some of The Ordinary's most popular products. Lactic acid is my favorite alpha hydroxy acid exfoliant. As a reminder, alpha hydroxy acids, or AHAs, are chemical exfoliants that help dead skin cells unstick, and so this tends to help with things like clogged pores, texture, and pigmentation. But they do also make your skin more sensitive to burning with UV, so make sure you're already using a good sunscreen in your routine before you start using these. Lactic acid is generally less irritating than glycolic acid, although it does depend on the formulation. This one is really gentle, and it can be hard to find lactic acid products on the market, especially affordable ones. When this was launched, I'm pretty sure there weren't any affordable ones on the market. I think the 5% is a really good starter exfoliant, or if your skin is really sensitive and easily irritated by acids. If you like what the 5% is doing for your skin and you want to go stronger, then switch to the 10%. And I really like that both of these are in the range because there's an obvious progression. The glycolic acid toning solution has been one of my favorite Ordinary products ever since I started using it. It's just a really simple glycolic acid exfoliant, a really simple no-frill sort of product. It also works well as an acid deodorant if you want to go down that route, and the bottle is so big and is so inexpensive that you can put it on all the ingrowns in your body as well. The main issue that I have with it is that it kind of does encourage overuse with the name, the toning solution. It sounds like a product that most people can use every day without much irritation. It's also only 7%, but on my skin it feels stronger than 7%. It's comparable to other 10 or 15% acid exfoliants. So don't treat this like a toner, treat it as a chemical exfoliant. If your skin is easily irritated, or if you're already using irritating products in your routine, then treat it really carefully. But if your skin likes chemical exfoliation, if you use it really sensibly, if you step it up really slowly, then it is a really great product. If you're wondering how to sensibly step up your exfoliation, I have a free guide on setting up an exfoliation routine. I'll link that down below. I also don't think there's any need for a cotton pad for exfoliants. I apply them all with my fingers. The cotton pad is also kind of rough, and so it adds some physical exfoliation to your routine as well, and a lot of the time you just don't really need that. So the famous 30% AHA peel, this is the red one you've probably seen around everywhere. I'm putting this in the worst category because I know that it works for a lot of people, but a lot of people also abuse it. It's sort of like St. Ives apricot scrub. There's nothing inherently wrong with the product when it's used safely, but with all the hype around it, a lot of people are not using it safely. This is a really high concentration wash-off chemical exfoliant. It's the sort of thing that can give you a chemical burn if you're not careful, and I really do think people need to be experienced acid users before they start using this. So it's for someone who's been using chemical exfoliants for at least a few years. Maybe they've had some professional peels as well, so they know how it should feel, and maybe they've over exfoliated a few times so they know what can go wrong. I've seen people derma rolling over this, people using it every day, people leaving it on for way too long. The Ordinary do have lots of warnings about this, so they do say it's for experienced users only. They say that you shouldn't use it more than twice a week, although I still think that is too much. Even though a lot of people are using it sensibly, the easy availability means that a lot of people also aren't, and so I think it's the sort of thing where it would be better to have more regulations around it. So for example, if it was an over-the-counter drug where you had to at least talk to a pharmacist before you could buy it. In Australia, it's actually illegal to sell this product. It's illegal to have products that are over 20% glycolic acid at a low pH outside of salon use. I used to think that this policy was really unnecessary and overprotective, but now that I've seen how people use this product, and I've talked to estheticians and dermatologists who have been telling me that people are coming in with really bad chemical burns and irritated skin and just destroyed barriers from using this product, I'm starting to see that, yeah, this policy does make a lot of sense. Retinoids are the gold standard ingredients of skincare. They're really good for lots of things like acne, fine lines, hyperpigmentation. There are a bunch of prescription ones that are more powerful and usually more irritating, and there's a bunch of ones that are allowed in cosmetic products. These are generally a bit weaker. Retinol is the most common vitamin A you'll find in cosmetic products, and it is really unstable. It needs those extra bells and whistles to make it from the manufacturer to your house, and then once you've opened the bottle, it'll start degrading, and so it needs to be slowed down there. Plus, it also needs to be delivered deeper into your skin for it to actually work. And with the Ordinary, you kind of have the worst of everything here. It does have a brown bottle which protects it from light, but the dropper is open to the air. The simple formula means that there isn't much helping it stay stable once you've opened it, and the lack of testing and optimization means that there's not much going on with the formulation to tweak it, to make it more stable, or to make it go deeper into your skin. There's actually a recent study that looked at how much retinoids degraded in products. They tested a bunch of different products and it was really variable. And this is something that a lot of larger companies really put a lot of effort and focus and research into. Neutrogena's formula is optimized and stabilized so much that they can keep it in a jar, and it has a 2-year shelf life. With the Ordinary's one with zero optimization, unsurprisingly, it is not so good. In the study, which tried to replicate real-world conditions, there was only 30% left after 6 months. The degradation also follows first-order kinetics, which means that the degradation happens fastest at the start. PK also said in our interview that he recommends keeping it in the fridge and throwing it out after 3 months, and I just don't think that's worth it. If you want a retinol product, get a product from a brand that has conducted stability testing and is happy to stand by that. Basically, look at the packaging, see if it mentions stability. If it doesn't, then ask the company if they can guarantee the stability. If you're in a country like Australia where tretinoin is relatively easy to get, then I would recommend that because drugs have guaranteed stability and shelf life. On the flip side, tretinoin is more irritating. So in that study I mentioned, they also looked at the Ordinary's gram-active retinoid and they found that it was really stable with only about 15% degrading after 6 months. This isn't really surprising because gram-active retinoid's active ingredient, which is hydroxypinocolone retinoate, it was designed specifically to be stable. Studies have also found that it's meant to be more effective with less irritation, although the studies were all conducted by the manufacturer, so there's possible bias there. Anecdotally, most people say that this just isn't irritating at all. There are a few different versions that the Ordinary have. They have the emulsion and they have a bunch in squalane. I'd recommend the emulsion because emulsions in general deliver these sorts of ingredients better into your skin. But as far as I know, the Ordinary haven't really done efficacy studies on their formulas, so it is a bit of a best guess. I've talked about the powders before and how I really don't like them. I think they're just lazy products and they're really unnecessary, and if you look at the prices, they are kind of a rip-off. First off, with vitamin C. Vitamin C is a really good antioxidant that's good at protecting your skin against free radical damage from things like UV. It's also been recorded to fade pigment and increase collagen, and that's why it's regulated in Japan as a quasi-drug. The issue is that the effectiveness of vitamin C really depends on formulation, and the best tested version, which is L-ascorbic acid, which is also probably the most common one, it is massively unstable in water-based products. With ascorbic acid, it's already a really irritating ingredient, and a lot of people who are trying properly formulated L-ascorbic acid serums are already getting really irritated. So this is like an extension of that. If you already like ascorbic acid and your skin is made of steel, then this product might work for you. Or if you want a product that you can use on your body without worrying too much about the price, so you can just mix this into some body lotion, your body skin is generally less easily irritated and you have a lot more leeway because you're applying a lot more product. That could work, but if you just buy a pure ascorbic acid from a supplement store, it ends up being a lot cheaper. It works out to be 80 cents for the amount that's sold in this product, which is about $6. So I feel like there really isn't much point to this product unless you really like the jar, or you're not sure you'll keep on using it, or if you're just trying to use up your free shipping. The vitamin C suspensions are safer products that have the same benefits in terms of stability. It's a lot easier to dispense a safe amount of a 30% product than it is of a 100% product, and they also don't have water, so they're very stable. But the instructions are really not that great, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people also getting chemical burns with this. I actually really like this type of product, but you have to mix it with something else before you apply it on your skin, something water-based so that the ascorbic acid can dissolve and spread out properly. But the instructions do just say to apply straight to your face, and I think that's where it really goes wrong and why I'm hesitant to put it in the best category. So I'm going to invent a third category, which I'm going to call the category, which is where I put products that will work really well for some people. Honestly, there isn't really a standout vitamin C product in the Ordinary's range that I feel comfortable recommending in general. So I like the suspensions, but the way you use them has to be just ignoring the instructions. Ascorbic acid derivatives can be a good option in terms of stability and less irritation, but I really do think you need to have studies to show that they get delivered into skin, and the Ordinary just doesn't have that for their formulations. But if I did have to pick a best vitamin C product from the Ordinary, I would pick the ascorbyl tetraisopalmitate. It's more stable than ascorbic acid, and I liked it when I used it, but it didn't have the same wow effect that I get from a good vitamin C product. So this would be my pick if you specifically want something from the Ordinary, or if you can't handle ascorbic acid. But if you really want a proper vitamin C product, I would go with a different brand. Niacinamide, or vitamin B3, is a really popular ingredient because it's really versatile. It works for a whole bunch of people, it's not very irritating, and it does a bit of everything. So it can help with acne, pigmentation, texture. It actually helps with irritation and restores your barrier, and it's a really great addition to sunscreen. But it's an ingredient where I think the formulation can make a really big difference. My skin didn't really have massive benefits from the 10% Ordinary one, but it loved the Paula's Choice one. So with something like this, it's really throwing the dice. And I really don't think you need to go higher than 10 or 15%. There aren't any studies showing benefits with higher percentages, and there are a lot of dermatologists and estheticians who are saying that people are reacting to higher percentages. And niacinamide is in so many products these days, and it's not unstable like vitamin C. So I just really don't see the need for this product. I mean, I can see why they have this product because the first version did so well. It would be silly not to capitalize on that. But in terms of people's skincare routines, I just don't see the need for this. So their niacinamide 10% I'm putting in the category. It is their best-selling product, so clearly it works for a lot of people. But on some people, it just caused them to have really nasty cysts, and on some people like me, it was just really not that impressive. I actually liked it when I tried it, but then I tried the Paula's Choice, and that really showed me what niacinamide could do. I think the breakouts that this caused in some people made them think that niacinamide wasn't for them. But from what I can tell, it probably wasn't the niacinamide itself, it's something else in the formulation. So I do think this formulation is probably giving niacinamide a bad name, which is a pity because niacinamide is in so many products. If you're trying to avoid it, you have to avoid so much. So if you do react to this product or you're just not impressed by it, don't necessarily give up on niacinamide, although I do understand if you're just not willing to take that risk again. The Ordinary have a lot of plant oils, and plant oils tend to be expensive and they go off really quickly, so it's awesome that they have these. Now, no one needs to use oils. Oils are emollients, that means they sink into your skin a little bit and smooth it out. If you use a lot of oils, they can also act as an occlusive, which seals in water. But if you use a balanced moisturizer that has all three types of moisturizer, so occlusives and emollients, as well as humectants, which grab onto water and keep your skin hydrated, you're going to get better results than with something like an oil, which is very one note. But if your skin is dry, then extra oil can help, and if you like the feel of an oil, that's great as well. Also, you don't necessarily need to avoid oils if you have oily skin. I have oily skin and I really like oils in winter when my skin goes a bit flaky, and also as a final layer to put on top of everything else. I really do wish they had the production dates of their oils on the packaging so you had a better idea of when it was going to go off, but for the price it's really hard to complain. My recommendations are the rosehip and marula oils, but different people like different oils, and some oils break some people out and not others. So my skin works really well with rosehip, but other people say it really clogs their pores. Squalane is fantastic if you want an oil, well, not really an oil, but an oil-like product that doesn't go off easily. It's the hydrogenated version of squalene, which goes off really easily because it has a double bond. Double bonds are why plant oils tend to go off easily as well. They're really reactive. So this has a much longer shelf life, and so if you're like me and you only use tiny amounts of oil, then this is really good. Mineral oil works well for this as well, but I personally feel that mineral oil doesn't really sink into my skin as well. Again, it's not a complete moisturizer, it's mostly just an emollient, so if you feel like your skin is still drying out or if it's not softening your skin enough, then go for a proper, balanced, complete moisturizer. The downside of squalane is that it doesn't have those extra antioxidants that you find in plant oils, which is why a lot of us love plant oils, but that's the trade-off you get. I was really pleasantly surprised by the squalane cleanser because it's one of their few properly formulated products and it's actually formulated really well. It's basically a cleansing balm in a tube, so this is pretty good at melting off sunscreen and makeup. Not as good as some of the oilier cleansing balms I've used, but it is still really good. It spreads nicely on your skin and it washes off reasonably well. If you're not familiar with this sort of product, you massage it on your dry skin, then you wash it off. I personally step into the shower and wash it off with warm water. I use this as my first cleanse and I follow up with a foaming cleanser. I don't think I could use this on its own effectively if I had a lot of makeup on, but I think some people use it with a washcloth and that tends to work better. I think it would be good if The Ordinary had a normal cleanser in their lineup as well, because I think this is just a bit confusing for people, but I do really like it. I got this when I was in the UK and I really don't like it. It's not approved in Australia, although they said that they are working on getting some of their newer sunscreens in Australia. I'm hoping they'll be better because this has a horrific white cast and it's just really thick and pore clogging. I think sunscreen is one of the products that doesn't really work well with The Ordinary's business model. With sunscreens, the formulation is so important that you need to have those rounds of optimization, and The Ordinary just doesn't really do that. The Natural Moisturizing Factors is another product for me. This is a really good moisturizer if you have oily skin and you have a lot of other moisturizing ingredients in your routine, so from things like serums. It's really lightweight, it doesn't add much grease to your skin. But a lot of the serums from The Ordinary don't have those extra moisturizing ingredients in them because of the simple formulations, and this is just not a very complete moisturizer. I think that's because The Ordinary do sell other moisturizing ingredients on their own, so all the plant oils as well as the hyaluronic acid serum, and they expect you to use them all together. So that makes sense, but I think the range is really missing a proper well-rounded moisturizer that will work for most people as a really good moisturizer. If you have dry skin, this is probably not going to work for you, and if you only use The Ordinary products for the rest of your routine, it probably won't work for you either. But for my oily skin and for my completely disloyal routine where I use tons of different brands, this works really well. But there are so many other really effective moisturizers on the market that I think you can just skip this. The azelaic acid suspension is another product for me. It's not an ingredient that I tend to use a lot in my routine. There are some studies on it for things like acne and rosacea and hyperpigmentation, but from talking to a lot of veteran dermatologists, they call it an active ingredient in search of a disease. Basically, some companies really wanted to make azelaic acid happen, and so they just tested it against a whole bunch of conditions. The studies use really high concentrations, so like 20% twice a day, and so it's just not a very powerful ingredient. And that also means there's a lot of limits in your routine because it has to work well with the rest of your stuff because you have to keep using it all the time. Plus, the formulations are just really difficult because you have 10 to 20% of a powder in there. But it is pretty non-irritating and it's safe in pregnancy, and a lot of people have a lot of success with it. This particular version is pretty hit and miss. It's got a pretty sticky formulation that tends to ball up if you use too much, and if you don't use enough, then you don't really get those azelaic acid benefits. I prefer the Paula's Choice formula, but this one is more budget friendly. There's also the proper drug versions of azelaic acid, which I think are always the best option if you can get them and if they work well for you. There's just extra levels of guarantees of effectiveness and quality when it comes to a pharmaceutical product. So this does have some really great reviews, but I do think there are better azelaic acid products out there. So those are my opinions on these products from The Ordinary. Do you agree? Do you like the ones I like, or do you hate them? Or do you really like the ones that I don't like? Is there maybe a really underrated product that I missed? Let me know in the comments. Also let me know if you want me to go through the rest of The Ordinary's products or if you want to see a different brand like maybe the Inky list. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, click the like and the subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram and check out my blog. I've also started trying to make TikTok videos, so you can check me out there as well, and tag me in anything that you want me to bust in terms of myths. It seems like there is a lot of misinformation on TikTok. Thank you for watching, and see you next time to nerd out more.